Every password you have ever created, every bank transfer you have made, every encrypted message you have sent, all of it protected by mathematics that a new kind of computer will eventually solve in seconds. Google just confirmed the countdown has begun. And most people are not even aware of the compute power they're talking about. Meanwhile, halfway across the world, Singapore's small business backbone is facing a different kind of existential question that may mirror what the rest of us will experience. Can they compete globally without dramatically more government support? Some business chambers say no. Coming up on Unbreakable Ventures, why your encryption has an expiry date you cannot ignore. Why Singapore's SME survival matters far beyond its borders. And 5 quick-fire threats, including AI tools being weaponized against you, plus another telecommunication outage exposing dangerous third-party dependencies. It is Tuesday, the 10th of March, 2026. And we are covering the world's global threats over the last fortnight, so grab a coffee and let's get into it. Welcome to Unbreakable Ventures. I am Ollie Law, Editor-in-Chief, and you are listening to our fortnightly risk update where we dive into emerging and current risks from around the world. We focus on some big stories, but mostly ones you may have missed. We use the categories from the World Economic Forum's Global Risk Report to simplify the threats we are monitoring, but we also do some deep dives and interviews with industry peers. Now, before we get started this week, I want to acknowledge the elephant in the proverbial threat landscape room, the United States war in Iran. President Donald Trump's decision to attack Iran over the last few weeks is likely a defining moment in his second term. With the Hormuz Strait now closed, the world is likely to experience soaring oil prices, inflation, and basic goods tripling in cost. In addition to the economic impacts of this war, the world is observing historically glamorous neutral cities like Dubai come under attack. We're seeing images of instantly recognizable skyscrapers being targeted by missiles. The familiarity of the location, the very real situation of war, coupled with many of us having family or friends on the ground, has made this conflict unique. So you may be wondering why the war hasn't made it into today's update. The answer is simple. The crisis in itself warrants more than a 20-minute podcast. The advisory that owns Unbreakable Ventures, Fix Inc., has advisors on the ground in Dubai, and we have been quietly compiling insights and experiences directly from them. We have been monitoring the reality of life in the United Arab Emirates versus what we're seeing in the media and helping businesses navigate fact from fiction. Over the coming weeks, we'll produce some content that focuses on the lessons of the war, how we must continue to focus on best practice business continuity, and any insights gathered regarding the economic impacts of another US war. For now, let's jump into our first threat update this week. Let me paint a picture for you. Imagine you have a massive combination lock, not with 4 digits, but with tens of thousands that can change randomly at any moment. A traditional computer trying to crack it would test each combination one at a time. It could take millions of years before it found the correct sequence. This time frame alone makes it a very simple but effective defense mechanism to cyber threats. Now imagine a different kind of computer, one that does not think in simple yes or no answers, one that can test millions of combinations simultaneously, all at once. That is quantum computing. Traditional computers process information as bits, either 0 or 1. Quantum computers use something called qubits. These can exist as both 0 and 1 at the same time. The official term is called superposition, and it allows them to solve certain problems exponentially faster than anything we have today. Despite this digital evolution not exactly existing or even being accessible to the general public yet, there is a real reason this concerns you today. Every piece of encryption protecting your business right now, from your banking systems, your customer data, your emails, your transactions, all of it was designed for a world where quantum computers did not exist. That's why Google just confirmed what cryptographers have warned about for years. Quantum computers capable of breaking current encryption are no longer theoretical. They are an engineering challenge with a visible timeline, potentially within the next decade, thanks to the advancement of Gen AI. But what is most interesting about this threat perhaps lies in the foundational work bad actors are undertaking. Adversaries are harvesting your encrypted data today. They are using a strategy called harvest now, decrypt later, where they stockpile sensitive communications. Everything from financial records, state secrets, corporate intellectual property, all of it waiting to be cracked once quantum capability matures. Think about that for a moment. Data you encrypted 5 years ago, data you are encrypting today. It is being collected, stored, waiting to be used later. But you would be right in questioning how data collected now can be used against us a decade down the road. And it's here that lies the real threat. The encryption standards we rely on, RSA and ECC, form the backbone of secure internet communications. This covers our banking systems, government networks, corporate infrastructure. With a sufficiently powerful quantum processor, breaking this encryption becomes mathematically trivial. And that's the dangerous gap. Most organizations operate on 3 to 5 year planning cycles, but quantum-resistant migration requires 10 to 15 years of infrastructure overhaul. That's perhaps no more evident than in banking, where migrating legacy systems is a multi-year, highly complex project. The threat timeline and organizational preparedness are completely misaligned. While today's data might not be completely relevant a decade from now, it's the wider organizational digital fingerprint that's being collected to exploit later. It's someone painting the most detailed picture of your operations and stockpiling the most advanced data in order to train its computer later. Exactly how AI like ChatGPT are trained today. Now, you might be thinking, surely someone is working on this. And yes, they are. NIST, the National Institute of Standards and Technology, has already published post-quantum cryptographic standards. Yet adoption remains minimal as professionals focus on more current threats around artificial intelligence. Industries that spent decades building systems on encryption they assumed would remain secure indefinitely are barely moving, because the evidence in the risk is almost non-existent. It's a fair point too. If the risk of a computing power is 10 years away, why worry now? And that's my point. Because, as I've said, the encrypted data is being collected now. So who should be concerned about this technology? If you are in financial services or banking, your entire transaction security model that relies on encryption quantum computers will eventually break. Data encrypted today containing account details and transaction histories remains valuable for decades. If you are in healthcare holding patient data, medical records have indefinite sensitivity. Medical details are highly sensitive and already have a generally poor level of security, as we've seen from multiple examples out of Australia and New Zealand. Patient data encrypted today will still be sensitive in 15 years when quantum decryption becomes feasible. Today's protection becomes tomorrow's breach. What is secure now is only temporary. As risk professionals, we know this, but it's worth reiterating. If you handle government contracts or defense work, nation-state adversaries are actively harvesting encrypted communications right now. Assume hostile actors are building archives for future decryption. Assume state-backed attacks are well underway. Assume China, Russia, North Korea are all actively working on this threat. If you operate critical infrastructure like energy grids, water systems, telecommunications, networks, these operate on multi-decade infrastructure cycles. So systems being deployed today will still be operational when quantum computers mature. Cryptographic agility must be built into current procurement decisions. So what can you actually do about this, particularly given the complexity of the technology? First, conduct a cryptographic asset inventory now. If you don't have the internal capability to do this, outsource it. We can even introduce you to some consultancies capable of supporting. You need to begin mapping every cryptographic dependency across your infrastructure. This includes certificates, encryption protocols, key management systems, third-party services using cryptography. You cannot migrate what you have not catalogued, and most organizations drastically underestimate their cryptographic footprint. Second, implement crypto agility as an architectural principle. Design systems that allow cryptographic algorithms to be swapped without wholesale infrastructure replacement. Avoid hard-coded encryption implementations. Build abstraction layers, enabling algorithm updates as post-quantum standards mature. Third, prioritize data classification by temporal sensitivity. Not all data requires immediate protection. Focus quantum-resistant encryption efforts first on data requiring confidentiality beyond 2035, things like trade secrets, long-term strategic plans, legal records, etc. Create tiered protection strategies based on data lifespan. Fourth, engage your vendors on their post-quantum roadmaps. Demand clarity from technology suppliers on their migration timelines. include post-quantum cryptography requirements in procurement criteria. Suppliers without credible roadmaps become liability vectors. And finally, begin pilot implementations now. Start testing NIST-approved algorithms in non-production environments. Build organizational expertise while stakes remain low. The learning curve is substantial, and waiting for crisis conditions guarantees failure. The bottom line is this: risk managers need to assume that processes they currently believe are secure and reliable could be completely upended. Sure, maybe not in 1 year, but in 5, 10, maybe even 20 years. The organizations that survive this transition will undoubtedly be those who start preparing today, not those who wait until the headlines force their hand. Before we move on to our second threat update, we are sharing our quick-fire emerging threats we have picked up throughout the week. These will be noteworthy stories we think you should know about, but less detailed than our 2 core threats analyzed. Google's threat intelligence teams confirm adversaries are actively using large language models to accelerate attack development. They are improving phishing sophistication and automating vulnerability research. AI tools are lowering barriers for less sophisticated threat actors while enabling advanced groups to scale operations. Organizations should assume AI-enhanced attacks as baseline threat reality and invest in enhanced employee training for more convincing social engineering. Hackers are manipulating AI summarization tools embedded in enterprise applications to extract sensitive information. By crafting specific prompts, attackers cause AI systems to expose confidential data in generated summaries. This exploits the trust organizations place in AI outputs and the broad data access these tools often receive. Security teams should audit AI tool permissions immediately and restrict summarization features from accessing sensitive repositories. Aon's latest survey reveals Japanese businesses rank cyber threats and supply chain disruption as their primary risk concerns for 2026. This marks a significant shift from traditional Japanese risk priorities. It signals broader regional recognition that digital and physical supply chain resilience require integrated risk management, not siloed approaches. Optus has suffered yet another significant outage. This follows their 2023 network collapse that disabled emergency 000 services, an outage that potentially contributed to preventable deaths. This latest incident traces back to a database software update from a third-party vendor. The pattern mirrors the CrowdStrike update that crippled Microsoft systems globally. It illustrates how organizations have limited visibility into vendor development and testing practices. Critical infrastructure operators must implement rigorous vendor management frameworks and assume third-party software changes carry systemic risk. Group IB research documents continued evolution of supply chain cyber attacks throughout 2026. Threat actors increasingly target software development pipelines and managed service providers. Breaching one upstream supplier provides access to hundreds or thousands of downstream victims. Organizations must extend security requirements contractually to suppliers and monitor for anomalous behavior from trusted third-party integrations. Further sources and references can be found in the footnotes of this podcast. But without further ado, let us look at our second threat update this week. From quantum computing reshaping digital security to the very real economic pressures facing businesses across Asia Pacific. Our second story takes us to Singapore, where small and medium enterprises are calling for help. Singapore's business chambers are making their voices heard ahead of Budget 2026. They want expanded government support, specifically larger automation grants, and enhanced assistance for SMEs pursuing international expansion. Now, why does this matter beyond Singapore's borders? Let me explain. SMEs represent over 99% of Singapore's enterprises. They employ roughly 70% of the workforce. Their competitiveness is directly tied to national economic resilience, and Singapore's position on a global scale is that of a successful regional business hub. The Singapore Business Federation argues current support mechanisms have not kept pace. Operating costs are rising. Supply chain restructuring requirements are growing, and the technical investments needed to compete in fragmenting global markets are substantial. The requests focus on several key areas: increasing the enterprise development grant ceiling, expanding automation support schemes, and creating more accessible pathways for smaller firms to establish overseas presence without disproportionate compliance burdens. This push reflects broader anxieties about cost competitiveness. Regional neighbours offer lower operating costs, while Singapore-based SMEs face escalating wages, rental expenses, and regulatory requirements. Industry representatives emphasise a stark warning: without enhanced support, Singapore risks losing entrepreneurial talent and business formation to more cost-competitive regional alternatives. So who should be paying attention to this? If you are a Singapore-based SME considering regional expansion, the gap between ambition and accessible support mechanisms may widen or narrow based on Budget 2026 outcomes. Understanding the evolving grant landscape directly impacts your expansion timing and strategy. If you are a regional competitor or partner of Singapore firms, changes to Singapore's SME support ecosystem affect competitive dynamics across ASEAN markets. Enhanced automation grants might alter cost structures and market positioning. If you are a multinational with Singapore supply chain dependencies, Singapore's SME health directly affects supply chain reliability. SME competitiveness challenges cascade into your procurement risk. Additionally, if you are in workforce development and training, automation grant expansions create demand for reskilling programs. Organizations positioned to support SME workforce transitions may find expanded market opportunities. And if you are a regional policymaker, Singapore's approach serves as a benchmark across ASEAN. Budget 2026 decisions will influence competitive policy responses from neighbouring economies. So let's look at what actions should businesses consider. First, map grant eligibility before strategic planning. Singapore SMEs should audit current and proposed government support schemes before finalising investment decisions. Timing major capital expenditures to align with grant availability significantly affects return on investment. Second, diversify market exposure beyond single country dependencies rather than concentrating international expansion in single markets. Develop presence across multiple regional economies simultaneously. This distributes regulatory and economic risk. Third, build automation roadmaps aligned with workforce transition. Automation investments without corresponding workforce development create implementation failures. Develop parallel tracks addressing technology acquisition and employee reskilling. Fourth, establish regional partnership networks before expansion. Successful internationalisation typically requires local partners, distributors, or joint venture relationships. Begin relationship building in target markets before committing expansion capital. And finally, monitor Budget 2026 announcements closely. Organisations prepared to move quickly following favourable announcements gain competitive advantage over slower responding peers. The broader lesson here extends well beyond Singapore. Government support mechanisms for small business are shifting globally, and trade conditions are becoming more complex. And the cost of doing nothing is rising faster than the cost of adaptation. Whether you are in Singapore, Australia, New Zealand, understanding how your neighbours are positioning their SME ecosystems helps you anticipate competitive shifts and plan accordingly. Singapore may seem a world away for most of us, but how they treat SMEs is a reflection of 70% of the workforce anywhere, and that is worth monitoring.
That's it for today's update. If you need help navigating these threats or building a plan to protect your business, the same advisors who collate these insights are here to help. Head over to unbreakableventures.com to book a complimentary chat online with one of them. And if you found this resource useful, consider subscribing to Unbreakable Ventures or sharing the article with your network. After all, resilience is about community and communication. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, stay safe.
Unbreakable Ventures is brought to you by the Senior Advisory Team at Fixing, a boutique resilience advisory based in the Oceania, ASEAN and India regions. Special thanks to our sponsor and Europe's leading SaaS provider for resilience software, F24. Our resources are researched and published by industry specialists across New Zealand, Australia, Malaysia and the UK. This podcast provides advice and opinion on disaster recovery and the threat landscape. The content is not a substitute for expert guidance during a crisis. Unbreakable Ventures is trademarked by Fixing Consulting Partners, a Fixing Group company.